Have you ever tried to make a difference, but felt like your individual action wasn't significant enough, that you didn't know where to start? Me too. Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Brandon, and I'm a freshman at the University of Washington. Like most people in my generation, I grew up hearing about the dangers of climate change. I heard my peers argue about why they should eat less meat or use less gas if there are millions of people all together who disregard the topic. Some people think that climate change is a topic that can easily be dismissed, a problem too big for one person to tackle. I disagree. I'm going to tell you the story of how I set out to help combat deforestation in Zambia. Didn't get it right the first time, or really the second either, but I tried again, asked for help, collaborated, and improved my methods. In middle school, I joined Zambia Club, where I started corresponding with my pen pal named Queen Irendia. Queen and I were both really curious about each other's lives, so we asked each other's questions and learned that we have a lot in common. We both share a love for mint chocolate chip ice cream, spending time with family, and learning new things. Just like me, Queen wants to change the world. However, I also learned that our lives are very different. Queen has limited access to everyday resources that I often take for granted. Wi-Fi, electricity, clean water, shoes. Our desire to learn about each other drove us to continue to communicate, and we're still friends 5 years later. This is Queen. In 8th grade, I became president of Zambia Club. Pretty exciting. We learned that many Zambian children are not able to attend school because they cannot afford shoes. This felt like a problem I could help solve. With a club budget of $100, I had to decide what meaning we wanted to deliver. The club and I answered with the Shoebox Project. Each shoebox contained a pair of shoes, some sparkly unicorn stickers, pens, paper, and other fun supplies. We thought we had the perfect solution. However, the summer following 8th grade, when members from the Zambia Club went to Zambia, they saw no trace of our shoebox project. Instead of becoming discouraged, I became immensely curious about how to improve my impact. So the next year, I became president of the high school Zambia Club. Again, pretty exciting. Now, with a club budget of $200, I felt like my ability to impact more than just doubled. That year, we also raised money for growable shoes that adjust sizes as kids grow older, allowing them to wear them for many years. Again, we thought we had the perfect solution. However, the summer following, members from the Zambia Club went to Zambia and saw no growable shoes, not one pair. So I wanted to improve my impact, so I looked at what Queen was doing. On the other side of the world, instead of joining a club or sending gifts, Queen wanted to learn about and identify pertinent issues. So she researched. She learned that in the last decade, Zambia has lost over 17,000 square miles of forest. That equals about losing the size of Seattle over 20 times every year. This is a huge issue that I didn't know about because I had never asked Queen. I never asked Queen what she wanted. Instead, I focused on what I thought Zambia Club would like to send. And Queen, a very polite person, did not want to tell me she did not need more sparkly unicorn stickers. She did not want to tell me that students still need black leather shoes instead of the culturally rejected growable shoes. She did not want to tell me that, although my intentions were good and I tried, the shoebox project was a little bit of a miss. When trying to make an impact on the environment, I think people try to change something on a global or national scale. However, in trying to reduce emissions, effectiveness starts at a small level. Like Melinda Gates once said, if you want to see things happen at a global level, start at the village level. Give women the tools and education, and they will drive the change. Using Melinda's advice, this past April, I decided to go to Zambia. I was trying to make decisions about a community that I had never been to before. One of the first things I noticed when I stepped off the plane is that Zambia is beautiful. As we drove to a temporary home, Pioneer Lodge, amidst the beautiful landscapes and welcoming locals, I noticed lots and lots of charcoal for sale. I saw truckload after truckload come into Lusaka, and once brought into the city, locals would buy large bags of charcoal and tie them to their bikes for transportation, like the one pictured here. When I asked Queen about this, She told me that her family uses charcoal to cook food, provide heat, and boil water. Charcoal is made by burning wood in body formations. And according to the United Nations, one of the most significant problems the world faces today is lack of access to clean energy cooking. Queen shares this struggle with 3 billion other people. A 10-year study found that from 2001 to 2010, charcoal production increased by 1.2 million cubic meters, mostly caused by the fact that Zambians use charcoal 98% of the time to cook. This is a huge contributor to carbon emissions, a catalyst for climate change. Using the lens of sustainability, Queen and I wanted to create a project that cut 100% of carbon emissions. So Queen told me that Zambia has a ton of sun exposure, having approximately 8 hours of intense sunshine per day. This was not my first thought, as Seattle has about half of that exposure. She also told me that northern parts of Zambia have some of the highest ranking solar radiation in the world. Although Seattle may not provide the most sun exposure, I was able to partner with an American solar company. They donated several solar stoves for me to bring to Zambia to help families cook food without using charcoal. The solar stoves harness and intensify the energy into one closed tube while cooking. As I helped prepare a meal one night in Zambia, I learned that Zambians eat a lot of nshima. Nshima is a corn-based food that looks somewhat like rice, but it must be constantly stirred while it's cooked, meaning the solar stove became another unrealistic alternative. Just like the shoebox project and the growable shoes, once again, this was a little bit of a miss. But I was determined to try again. So, while in Zambia, I looked for a better solution. I connected with Zambian solar entrepreneur Clement Musonda, who also shares the same goal of trying to combat deforestation by providing Zambians a way to use solar energy to cook nshima. We also teamed up with Scott Rundle, another solar entrepreneur, who donated 75 of his solar stoves, which are pictured to the right. They both are helping Queen in my efforts to end charcoal emissions, one nshima stir at a time. So, maybe you're wondering, what does all this trial and error add up to? Well, here's the point. If we're going to help communities, whether they're halfway around the world or right next door, we need to listen and learn before we act. Although Queen was appreciative of all the sparkly unicorn stickers, shoes, pens, paper the Zambia Club sent, they only made short-term improvements. To make long-term impacts, communication is key. Before communication comes acknowledgement. I have to acknowledge that I cannot do everything alone. To name a few, I need Queen, Clement, and Scott. Co-creating is more effective than one person deciding something for others, especially others that live across the world from them. I also have to acknowledge that, as much as I'd want it to be, Zambia is not my home. We have to help aid locals determine their own solutions that work for them. As easy as this sounds, it is hard for me not to micromanage every detail. Before I went to Zambia, my sister posed the argument that instead of going, I should invest the cost of the trip into the Zambian economy instead. She thought that would have a larger impact than me going, especially with all my flight emissions. However, an individual would never make a large enough impact on climate change if nobody had a personal attachment to the problem. Co-creating is more effective than one person deciding something for others, especially others that live across the world from them. I'm also not saying that everyone should jump on a plane and fly halfway across the world, but it is time to look beyond our own communities and evaluate the larger global impacts of our problems. We are all global citizens and have a duty to make constant readjustments and continual effort to make the most meaningful impacts. I collaborated with Queen and others to co-create a solution that was culturally translated to the context of Zambia. I invite you all to think about how you can use the co-creation principles to help solve your problems. I'd like to finish by returning to Queen's response to my question of, what would you like us to do? Queen responded, I want to help make a better life for my family and change the world. Queen is my constant reminder of why I continue to learn about deforestation in Zambia. Queen, just by discussing the issues of charcoal emissions in Zambia, gave me the inspiration to continue to fight climate change. Now, we just need more Queens in the world. Thank you.